significant enhancements to the benefits that were provided to folks. Most significantly around the benefits that are paid for the employees. You moved from most significantly. Didn't realize I was on a delay. I don't keep my potty mouth under control. So you don't. But you moved them from the full-time folks from a flat $10,000 benefit that was provided to everybody to a $50,000 benefit, and for the half-time folks from 5 to 25. Big change in the benefit plan there. And then also you did make some changes to the benefits that were available to the employees for them to buy up. It was from a 1 to 5 times pay limit, and you move that from 1 to 7, so it allows people to get a little bit more coverage for themselves, and increase the spouse from options up to 100,000 to options up to 250, as well as the child coverage. So big plan changes. There was a lot of communication that went into that. And obviously some great enhancements. I think we got a lot of excitement out of it from folks. They were really thrilled to have those increases in benefits. And obviously a lot of changes there. So it brought a lot of administrative projects on as well.
Well, that's where I come in, and I'm Lara Clark. I'm your dedicated client service consultant. And what that means is my only job is to support the city of Los Angeles. I work closely with Paul and his group. I talk directly to your members and their beneficiaries through our group life policy and to guide them through it. So I'm honored today to talk to you about where we've gone so far this first year. We've made meaningful strides in our administrative projects, especially in the importance between transition. We set up and implemented the single sign-on experience through your TELUS benefit portal. It's a direct link to MetLife where your members and their dependents can fill out their statement of health applications securely. We also did a thoughtful certificate alignment. The team, which when I say the team, I think of Paul and his benefit staff as well as us, have worked really diligently to make sure that certificate aligns with the city processes, because when that doesn't align, it becomes a bumpy situation for a beneficiary during a difficult time for them. And we want to make that as smoothly as possible. So full alignment is very important to us. And I'm pleased to say we're pretty close to getting that done now. We also looked at internal processes where we can actually have improvements. So we made a change to kind of a co-worker where I myself and the benefits department work together to do the employer statement, to streamline that, to make it a more smooth process for the beneficiary. This last enrollment, we actually did a re-enrollment campaign. We sent out personalized letters, which Lewis will talk about in a minute, where we sent them out to your members to let them reevaluate their life insurance. This was to increase the participation in the program. And the analysis, we're still going through that right now, but we should have that in a couple of weeks for you guys to look at. Now, the next slide is what we're particularly proud of, which is that single sign-on experience through TELUS. The applicants are getting real-time decisions online through our automated underwriting system. That means 9 out of 10 of your applicants are getting immediate decisions, which your applicants are getting clear, concise information with no manual intervention. So this platform also is set up to have email reminders. So for the people who aren't completing their applications, to remind them, the spouse or e-signature online, and even gives them an opportunity to schedule paramedical exams online. And these improvements definitely make this whole process more efficient and not time consuming for your members. The next slide is a lot of data on the 2025 open enrollment. I'm not going to talk about all of it. I just want to kind of concentrate on what's most important, which is we received almost over 1,800 applications of individuals seeking insurance through and had to fill out a statement of health application. And of that amount, 50% of them went to completion. That's the approval and declinations. And of those that were completed, we had an 87% acceptance rate. Now, this data also showed us where we can improve, and that's the no action. The no action are the individuals who start an application and they never complete them. That's at 47%. So that's going to give us, our team, the opportunity to come up with a strategy. So by this next enrollment, we're going to have that percentage less.
And part of that is going to be, mostly focusing on education for folks before they get into the process, so they know what to expect. Part of it is a set of reminders for follow-ups if people don't engage in the program, like, hey, you were directed here, you didn't complete it. Don't forget about it. Because sometimes, you're going through enrollment, you may not want to take the time to answer the questions or whatever. You're like, I'll get to that later, I'm busy. And then life happens and you kind of forget about it. So we try and just sort of push it back up to the top a couple of times after that, so that for folks who are really engaged and want to take the time, they have the opportunity.
Give people a tickle.
I'm sorry?
I said, give them a tickle.
It's exactly right. Yeah,
Exactly.
you got, so, we all need a push once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Next one.
We got to do it
Thank
quick.
you.
You got to pay
Mhm.
attention as I go.
Thank you. So my name is Luis Martinez. I'm part of the City of LA account management team, and my primary responsibility is to ensure that you and your employees have a seamless experience working through the benefits that they have. And so on slide 9, Laura touched on it a little bit. One of the things that we did differently during open enrollment is we sent out letters just reminding the employees of the opportunity to increase their coverage or just enroll in coverage. And I think it's really key. A lot of folks we find are uninsured or at time of death, they don't have the amount, the beneficiary does not have the amount to lay their loved ones to rest in the way they want to. So we sent out personalized letters educating them, making them aware of the opportunity to enroll or increase their coverages. And as Laura explained earlier, those results will be coming in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be excited to see those results. And hopefully folks have taken advantage of the opportunity to enroll in those benefits.
Yeah. And I think anecdotally, just looking at that information, like it comes in, we have to wait for the billing and things to clear for January before we can really get the full analysis. But it does appear as though it was successful, particularly in the area of people who are already participating and kind of evaluating and increasing coverage. We're still waiting to see how many new people versus, kind of come and go off the plan. But it does look like we had good connection with folks who were taking steps to increase coverage. So I think that's a good sign. And really what we want, because it's important for people we know if they take the time to evaluate, they're going to get the coverage that they need versus thinking they have the right coverage and just, leaving it to chance. And obviously this is something that you can't go back on if you haven't chosen the right amounts, right? So we want to make sure they're taking the time when they're here to do that. So. We'll flip to the next slide. We're going to get into a little bit of data here. And like I said, this is the area where we have a little bit of limited because it's only first year. So we can't kind of do historic trends and stuff like that we would normally like to do, because I think those are as valuable as the aggregate, as the kind of the concrete numbers. But we'll do the best we can to kind of draw from what we saw during the RFP, a year and a half ago versus what we see today and what we saw upon enrollment. So first one is just the city paid numbers, and you can see we've got basically the group basic and then the supplemental basic, which is another category there, and we've got it kind of laid out into 3 categories. One is prior carrier, and that data is based on what we had during the RFP. So obviously during that we got information and we could see what was enrolled at the time. The next one is going to be immediately after we took over in January, and then the November, which is the most recent numbers we had available for this meeting. And you can see under the basic life, these pieces are very, very consistent. So not a lot of change in lives. Obviously, the change in coverage amount jumped dramatically because of the changes that you guys put in. And so that's expected. But since they've gone in, not a tremendous amount of sort of change in that coverage amount. And what we're seeing there's probably a little bit of, salary increases and things like that were there. But, very consistent across the board from that perspective. So we didn't expect to see a lot there, and the numbers don't, kind of vet that out. So if we go to the next one, this is where it gets a little bit more into some, sort of seeing some trends and things like that. And this has the same idea, with the exception of we only cut for the November numbers versus the January and the November, just to keep the slide a little more manageable here. This is the optional extra. This is what the employees buy up themselves. And down the left side, you can see that's the multiple of salary coverage that they've elected. And then prior coverage in the middle, and then the MetLife numbers for the most recent numbers there on the far right side. And it's broken out between participation and lives, and then the average amount of coverage with the average salary there. So you can see as you go down through here, a lot of consistency in the first couple of tiers. So the 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, those fairly consistent, not a lot of movement between them, but we opened it up to a 6 and a 7 times on their options. And so we did see a nice migration of people taking that 6 and that 7 times option. So you've got almost 600 people that elected to go all the way up to the 7 times. And I think that just validates the plan changes that you made to let you know that, yeah, there were definitely a lot of people out there that felt like they didn't have enough coverage and they've taken advantage of it. And like I said, when we get the analysis done for the 26 numbers, it's looking like there's further migration in the upper tiers. So people are, maybe they just missed it last year that there were optional options that they had, and now they're kind of moving into those. So I think all in all, the numbers indicate it was a very successful change to the plan design. So I think, success there for sure in the strategy that you did. The next slide is very similar, but this is for the spouses. And this is where you had a lot of new options that came in. Obviously from the prior carrier, it was limited to 100,000 and now it's up to 250,000. And you can see that this actually saw a little bit more migration from even the lower tiers moving up. And, we've got, when you look at it, you've got an increase of 16% from 100,000 up. So you definitely saw some new people coming into it, as well as people gravitating towards the new options. And that may be as a result of just carrier change, plan change, people start paying attention to the communications that go out. So all in all, once again, I think this just reinforces that with the movement we saw and the engagement we saw, successful plan changes and I think successful transition. So very good news there. And then the next slide is just the children, which we don't need to spend too much time on, but you can see similar results where we saw increases in participation slightly, but obviously people taking the new options versus the old coverage. So all the good there. And then finally, there's AD&D coverage. So this is accidental death and dismemberment that they can buy up as well. There were no plan changes here. And honestly, there were no rate changes. We took it over as is. So we expected to see it extremely stable. And we did. Honestly, 221 adds and changes is, that's a little bit of that's a statistical expectation. So really, I mean, we look at this and say there were no changes to it, which is as expected. So so that's the sort of the coverage, the first cut of it. And we'll continue to monitor this and watch it. We like to kind of dig into it. I'm kind of a numbers geek, so I like to sort of pull it apart and see what's trending in there and what's moving, even within the population itself, demographics. We see differences in age movement. Sometimes we see changes in the younger populations or the older populations, et cetera. So we'll keep an eye on the trends and see what's going on there. So we'll shift now over to a little bit of the financials. And like I said, this is where this is very little data so far, just, a year's worth of data. But I think that the overall here is that things are going well, certainly as expected. I think one of the things that was unsure, and we ran into this a lot as we were taking over cases last year, is that within the experience, so we evaluate the prior carrier's experience to set rates going forward. Within that experience, there was COVID data in there, and it's very difficult to sort of pin that down because COVID did a lot of very unpredictable things and things that we weren't sure were going to carry forward. So I think the good news here is that your plan experience has kind of come, has stayed where we were seeing it towards the end of it. And so we feel like the rates are very appropriately set right now. We weren't too aggressive with them. So it's not running at 150%. But we also weren't too conservative where it's running at a really high profit margin, because we don't want either one of those. We want it to be right where it is. And still very early, things change from year to year, even with a giant size group like yourselves. But all in all, I think very good. The incidence is really driving right where it was. So not a tremendous change. In fact, maybe a slight improvement, which is good. That gives us good flexibility moving forward. But like I said, incidence across the board has been positive this year. We expect it to fluctuate, but it's really in the range where we expected it to be. So I think from our perspective, we didn't drag our underwriter out with us, but I know they'd be happy right now. So and that's always a good thing. The last piece of data we've got here is just the top claims diagnosis. This is something I think is just more to kind of see, are we out of the, kind of way out of the expectations or the lines? Obviously, a total of 32 claims is not statistically significant number, so we wouldn't expect us to say, yeah, that's exactly predictive, but really about what we expect. You look at it from our book of business, these are very in line. Obviously, cancer is typically the top cause of deaths as people pass away. And the heart disorders is definitely the next one that's there. One question I know that may come up is the non-accidental, all other. This is kind of a catch-all bucket that we see sometimes in different cities, different physicians, different hospitals. They'll drop people into this versus putting in something more specific, a lot of times for privacy reasons. They just don't feel like giving the data onto the death certificates that we get. And so it's a little bit of a catch-all, but always shows up in all the statistics. So, and you can see here, we've got 32, there were 32 basic life claims, 17 optional life claims, roughly half your participation on the optional life, roughly half. And so that's commensurate. Sometimes, we look at these and you might see only a third, or you might see 2/3. So everything's really kind of lining up where it's expected to be. So, I mean, all in all, that's good news with the program. So in the last couple of minutes here, I just want to touch base quickly on a few of the value adds, because this is obviously a really important piece of this for us. We want to be able to offer value to folks beyond just paying death claims. I mean, that's obviously the most important piece of this, but there's a lot of things that we can do for employees while they're still alive, and then also for their families and beneficiaries when there is somebody does pass away. So one of the big things that we've got on here, if you put on the next one, is empathy. It is a program that we offer out to all the beneficiaries and the families of the beneficiaries when a loss happens. And this is something that is provided to them. They don't pay for it. It's included in the services. And really, in 30 seconds, this is one-on-one support that stays with the beneficiary and their family from the time the claim happens for up to a year. And it's designed to really help them with everything that's outside of the claim. So certainly Lara and folks internally are there to help them with processing the paperwork and making sure that the claim gets paid. But there's so much more to dealing with the loss of a loved one. And it's the worst possible time. And, grieving is almost impossible because of the administrative things you have to do. And administrative things are almost impossible because of the grieving. This is designed to insert itself into that process and help. And they will do virtually anything and everything that needs to be happened. So something as simple as I need to write, I needed some help writing a eulogy for the service, or I need to coordinate my family members for the, a celebration of life that's coming up, or I need to clean out my, my loved one's house, and I just can't do it. I need help with these things. It's designed to do that for them, and it's there to help them out with that. And like I said, it's really flexible. It's included, and something that we'll be tracking utilization and making sure, because at the time of claim, we're also making them aware of this service so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So.
Additional value add services is will preparation. So will preparation is also included with the basic and the supplemental life at no charge to the employee. Also, funeral planning and discounts are available through the funeral planning service. Also helping with making arrangements for a loved one. That's also included in that funeral planning. We also offer as a value add is retirement financial planning. So those are workshops. If you would be interested, call Neil, myself, and we would have a workshop for financial planning and retirement at any location that you guys would be interested in.
And these are services that we will continuously educate people on and make sure they're aware of them, because these are things that you may not think about. Oh, it's my life insurance program. I should go get a will done. We have a full network that people can use. There's a fantastic online tool that they can use. And we know for a fact is most people don't take the time to make a will. And so just trying to tear those barriers down, making it free, making it easy, so that they take care of that, because we see it over and over and over again where people pass away and they weren't prepared with a will, and it just creates so much chaos and difficulty for the people that they leave behind. So that is something that we're pretty passionate about.
And then the last slide there, the transition solutions, this is your most used value add item. And these are significant numbers here for the transition solutions. We sent over near 2,000 packets to exiting members to give them information about their ability to port or convert their life insurance coverage. And nearly 1/3 of those individuals actually reached out to us for help. And of those 541 individuals, 41% of them actually wanted to have a sit down or a talk to go through that, all their options, and to be able to have all the information they needed to make the life insurance decision. So we were there for them with no cost to them. It was already part of the service.
Yeah, and this is really designed to help them as they're going through that. There's a lot of complication and, for the average layperson, they don't speak insurance and it can get really confusing. And we want to make sure, because it's time critical, there's a limited time for them to execute on taking that life insurance with them when they leave. And we want to make sure they don't have questions and they don't leave it and then find out, oh, I do want to do it, but now you're outside the window and you don't have the option. And so that's where this is designed. And those packets go out to everybody who leaves. To explain to them personally, what's available for them, how much they can convert or port, and what do those terms actually mean, because most people don't know what they mean. And so that's part of that program, and it's just included. We've got a systematic exchange of data with Paul's team through the file exchanges and things like that, and tell us so that we know who's going and we can connect with them. So, and that brings us to the end. It's like it was a minute and 22 seconds over, so almost got it in. Are there any questions?
I have a question on this last slide. This is something that I've wondered about my members in the policies we offer. Do you track the number of people that actually transition and stay with?
We do.
You
Yeah.
do?
Yeah,
Will
those.
we see that in future?
We can bring that too. I can tell you that most folks, it's a fairly small number that
Yeah.
wind up actually executing because they're either going to another job. So what happens sometimes is people will temporarily execute and then they'll cancel the policy. So you kind of get a little bit of a come and go, like, I'm going to be off work for 3 months or 4 months and I need to make sure I'm covered. But yeah, we definitely can pull some numbers there for sure.
Just curious.
Yeah.
And then would that be because of the cost difference aside from taking a new job, is the cost
Sometimes,
difference?
yeah.
very-
Yeah, sometimes it is because it is a more expensive policy than what you're getting here. I mean, obviously you have the benefit of the good experience through the city, and people who do tend to take that coverage are people who generally absolutely positively need it. So you tend to get a little bit of a worse profile and risk. So yeah, the rates will be higher than what they're paying here. And you guys have very competitive rates on the buy-up coverage as well.
Thank you. Last question. And I'm just trying to understand these numbers. So 32, it looks like there's been 32 deaths since
Mhm.
January to now. But what is incidence?
So incidence, that's a good question. I didn't explain that. So incidence is what we look at. That's the number of deaths per thousands of people covered in a year.
Okay.
And it's the way to sort of balance it from a financial perspective to look, because particularly on these, we look at how much average coverage there is and then how many claims we look so that we can establish, when we're setting rates, and we did that during the RFP process, that's kind of what drives it, right? It becomes, from that perspective, it becomes a little bit of a math formula. But that's what we look at. And incidence is one of the things, like if you were to look at this and isolate 20 and 21, incidence was probably double. So it was probably running at 5 or 6 or 7 potentially. It was, and now it's come much back to where we would have historically seen it. So that, on the basic life, somewhere around 1 to 1.5, optional life somewhere between 1 and 3. It varies more on the optional life because you have a smaller pool of people. But those are, what those are. Great question.
That's all I have.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes. All right. We'll call the meeting to order. We don't have to establish a new time, do we?
Yeah.
Okay. February 5th, 2026 at 9:34 a.m. Staff, would you please conduct the roll call to establish a quorum?
Thank you, Malika. We will now go through the roll call, starting with management and then the employee organization. Malika Dillis,
Present.
Tony Royster. Here. Matthew Cropper in for Matthew Rudney. Here. Paul Gerard in for Matthew Sable. Present. Patrice Latimo.
Here.
Janita Iguela,
I am here.
Marlene Fonseca,
Here.
Chad Boggio. Esteban Lizardo. And Lisa Kinobi.
Here.
Thank you. We have the quorum.
Okay, quorum is present. Do we have any public comments?
Okay, at this time, we will take public comments. If you are participating via phone, please press star 9 and announce yourself. If you are in the room, please drop off your speaker card to the front desk at this time. Just a repeat of the public comments. If you are participating via phone, please press star 9 and announce yourself. Okay, no response. Again, if you are in the room, please drop off your speaker card to the front desk. There are no public speakers for today.
All right, thank you. We'll move to our first action item, item number 3, Committee Report 2601, Benefits Trust Fund Budget Mid-Year Update for Fiscal Year 25-26, and Open Enrollment Update.
Good morning, everybody. Paul McCuskey from Employee Benefits. This report is broken into really 3 sections. So we're going to talk about the enrollment change. Then we're going to talk about the member experience and staff's experience in being able to address the member experience. And then final is cost. And cost is really the point to bring forth to the JLMBC for this particular report. The JLMBC is the authority over the Benefits Trust Fund. You are responsible and the authority to be able to agree to expenditures from the fund. And we had done an effort in calendar year 2025 to be more transparent, to be more in discussion as a committee over the budget itself. So you adopted a budget in a month of 2025 for fiscal year 25-26. And through that action, you had also requested that we bring back a mid-year adjustment, which is consistent kind of with the city's budget process of a mid-year FSR. And so that's really the larger intent of this document. So starting on page 2 is the discussion on enrollment. And that first chart that's listed there is a recap. This is the estimates of what we thought enrollment was going to look like through migration. It is a snapshot in time from, excuse me, from when the adoption of the results of the medical RFP were done. So this is around May. Or so of 2025, and that enrollment at that time. At the same ish meeting, we had, or a series of meetings at that time, on the next page, which is page 3, we had provided a chart of where employees were enrolled at that time. And I think the biggest piece of information to look at it for this particular chart, which you may recall seeing multiple times before, we had a population at that time of 27,225 lives, or employees, excuse me, not lives, included or enrolled into coverage at that time when we were doing migration status. For December of 2025, which is on the next page, the current enrollment that we're showing in this snapshot had gone down to 26,876, which is a loss of about 350 employees. And that's really important to understand because this is a constant moving number, right? There is attrition happening constantly. There's things going on that we can and cannot predict. And what we're going to show when we get to the next slide is that from month to December to month January, we had already seen an increase, and we're expecting to see further increases. At the time of us pulling this information and creating this report, we have over 150 new hire offers that still have not been accepted. So we expect our enrollment to get back up past the 27,000 figure pretty soon. This is a snapshot showing a little bit of a decline. So to that degree, this is attempting to talk about percentages, and you may not be able to see them because they're super tiny numbers. But as of December 2025, there were 21.46% of employees enrolled into an Anthem HMO, 10.86% enrolled to an Anthem PPO, and 63 rounded up to 2% enrolled into Kaiser. So then if we go to the next slide, which is showing January 2026 numbers, we are showing that the overall HMO percentage, so the UHC HMO plans and the Blue Shield HMO plans have a total enrollment of 20.88%. So that's a slight decrease in HMO enrollment on the non-Kaiser plans. And then the PPO enrollment for both the traditional PPO and the new HDHT PPO that we added in have a combined enrollment reflected at about 11.6%. So it's showing a little under 1% increase in overall PPO enrollment as of January. And Kaiser stayed relatively flat at 63%, as well as cash and enrollment. So we are seeing initially, just based on this one snapshot, we are seeing a shift in PPO enrollment. But what this doesn't show is that we're also seeing a shift, or we're thinking we're seeing a shift between the levels of HMO plans that are newly offered for 2026. We're going to go into a lot more detail of that when next month in March, when TELUS is doing their presentation to talk about open enrollment itself and the debrief of what happened and what employees did what. But to remind the committee, when we had done the launch of this new plan change, we had identified an ability to try to map employees to the HMO plan that would have their doctor, but also be the lowest cost for the city. So there's multiple experiences, multiple situations where an employee had all three options to go to. We put them to the cheapest one, but they could have selected a more expensive one. And then there's also the nuance that employees change dependents, right? So they may be employee only in 2025, and they may have added dependents that makes them a family plan in 2026. So there's a lot of changes that can happen. And you guys can stop me at any point if you want to go anything more detail. Otherwise, we'll just power on through. So on the next page, on page 6, I think we're on, we are going to talk about more the important thing, or a large aspect that we saw from employees, and a lot of the conversation was the cost change to the employees opposed to the cost change to the employer, us, the city. We saw 7.4% of employees had a cost decrease as realized. We had predicted something around that figure. We had predicted that there would be a large amount of employees that saw a decrease opposed to an increase. But this is actually what happened. We're seeing per paycheck. This is the difference between the paycheck of the employee on December 2025 and the paycheck of the employee in January 2026, excuse me. 7.4% of employees saw a decrease and 2.74% of employees saw an increase. And on the next page 7, you can see a breakout of what that physical decrease was. So these are the payroll changes for an employee. So on the left-hand column, that is all decrease. So there are 2 employees that were paying $878 per paycheck in 2025, and in 2026, sorry, that's the difference in cost, but that one just happens to be the employee share. But the cost that they paid per paycheck in December of 2025 decreased by $878.61 as of January in 2026. So the overall numbers that you can see at the bottom, there is definitely a large, as we predicted, a much larger number of individuals who saw a decrease than an increase. On the increase side, though, the largest kind of grouping is still that $64, $66 amount, or roughly about $65, which is mostly the transition of people that were under the Vivity plan going to UHC. The UHC signature value plan. Any questions so far?
Real quickly, is this per month or per pay period?
This is per pay period.
Okay.
Right. So it would be on the decrease side. If you look at the larger population, we saw employees in the larger group saw about a $200 per month or $100 per paycheck decrease, although there's much variations. And then on the increase side, employees saw about the largest group saw about a $65 increase per paycheck, or about $130 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And the chart is, just to say it for the record, is split between half-time and full-time employees, and the half-time employees are capped at the employee-only subsidy for any of the plans that they choose. That's based on our structure. So a lot of the cost changes that you see per paycheck on the half-time side are because those individuals have covered dependents.
Is this after the correction phase, or?
Correct.
This is after.
Yep, this is after the correction window of what actually happened on paychecks in December and January. Our correction window went through early December.
Early December, and the correction window was extended through November 27th. And then we also had we were still taking corrections through early in December.
And so then all of that would have been processed at that time, and then transfers to the carriers. The intent and desire and goal was to try to get it to them as soon as possible, which we, for the most part, did. And so they should have, anyone who made a correction during the correction window would see accurate paycheck deductions in January.
I mean, I would just like to point out that the cost change also should include other things like prescriptions, because there were cost changes in there as well.
Yeah, this part is only talking about paycheck.
But we'll get there.
That is not part of this particular report, but we can talk about it in general. Yes. And it is part of the member experience, actually. And so the last part of this section is just talking about the overall population change. We do expect the change to increase. So then going on to member experience on page 8. So we did, as part of this overall process, we had agreed and advertised that we thought it was going to be our staff that would provide the best experience for talking to nuanced situations of trying to get employees to understand what their mapping options were, to understand the plant differences. It would be either our staff or consultants, which we were heavily trying to do during the open enrollment actual window in October/November. But that was an advertisement. We told employees, call us, don't call the call center if you have questions about how to map. And the call center was not prepared or able to give really good information in that area. So our high call volume and email volume has continued quite extensionally through ever since open enrollment started. So the numbers at the bottom of the page on it are showing what our staff have been dealing with ever since October. It is since January has now gone back to a relatively manageable level. So we are seeing that we're at the end of the large rush of people understanding things, but we're still working through a lot of member inquiries, a lot of transition questions, which a lot of this section is pointing to. So the rest of these paragraphs really relate towards what we're hearing from members, what we're hearing, what we understand their experience to be since open enrollment closed, which is the December-January period, now that we're into transition. So we saw a lot of people still confused over PCP changes and auto assignment. We had tried a lot through this transition to make sure that we were getting people to the doctor that they needed to have or that we identified them having. There's still confusion. We heard that a lot during open enrollment of people confused on the name that they saw listed was a doctor that they didn't realize was their PCP or they didn't agree was their PCP. There's nuances in how medical plan groups work, nuances in things. And so we heard from a lot of members where their medical group did not operate in the way that the insurance really prescribes, and they can go to any doctor, and perhaps the PCP is not the one that they listed, is not the one they've ever seen, but it's just the way that it worked out. So there was a lot of confusion between what is required to move forward versus what they could conceptualize. There was also kind of confusion in the actual action of designating a PCP at the time of open enrollment. There were 3 factors that we required an employee to provide if they wanted to make a change or did anything else from the mapping. If there was a typo, if they transposed that information, if there was anything else kind of just by error, if something was blank, they would most likely get auto-signed and have a bad result. We tried to work with Blue Shield and UHC as much as we could, along with TELUS, to minimize a bad experience. But we ended up having about 2,000 employees overall in the HMO plans that ended up being auto-assigned for various different reasons. Part of it was the data mix-up of someone not filling out a field that was required, of doing a typo of something else. Part of it was for other reasons. Out of that 2,000, the heavy majority, almost 75%, was on the UHC side, which a portion of that auto-assigned situation is because of a mix-up misunderstanding kind of over how the data that we are transmitting to them and our plan rules coincided. So under our plan rules, there is a requirement or eligibility for any member that lives outside of the Los Angeles area to be able to pick a Los Angeles doctor. So there is a Department of Managed Healthcare regulation that says you have to have a primary care physician or a doctor facility within a certain radius of your residence. We have had a rule for quite a long time that says that you can use your worksite address to qualify. And the reason being, you spend a lot of your time, or at least you used to, on city property at work, and maybe you need to see a doctor here, not at your home in Palmdale or wherever else that you live. And so we had instituted that rule. That rule's been there for quite a long time, but the data does not reflect that. So when we send the data file, we're only sending one address. We're sending the home address. We're not sending a work address. And so there was a mix-up kind of confusion over how that would all work out. And there was a percentage of people that did get auto-assigned because of that, as well as some other nuanced kind of data reasons. But we've since resolved that, and we should no longer have that experience from employees of being not being able to get the doctor that they want within the either work address or home address that they so choose. And then on page 10, we have still a lot of confusion over what an actual primary care physician is. We still have a lot of employees who are seeing a specialist and not understanding the connection between how their medical group works, or they're seeing a nurse practitioner. We heard a lot. And so they wanted to designate somebody, or they got their card and they got upset because their nurse practitioner's name is not listed on there, but it's never going to be because that's not how it works. And so there's still been a lot of confusion in that area just on how medical insurance works from that degree. And then we did have some error situations happen, which we are taking as an administrative situation, administrative correction. So that's on page 11. When we mapped people, when we told them and we provided them a letter that said, we are mapping you to this plan because your doctor is confirmed as being in that network. But if our mapping was incorrect, if we had mapped them because we had thought that that was the case, but we found out that it was not the case, we are identifying that as an administrative error. So if they got their card and it does not have the doctor we told them it was going to be on it, we are offering to make a correction for them. Our ability to do that is a limited time ability, but we're still able to do that correction. So we need to hear from really the big focus was to make sure people looked at their card, that they got their card and were able to look at it. For anybody that has gotten their card and was unable to or did not see the doctor's name that they were expecting to see on it, and they needed to make a change, they can do so. They were able to do so within the first 30 days and have that change retroactively back to January 1st just by contacting the health plan itself. They're still able to make a change to their doctor prospectively. It's just going to be effective the next month. They can make a change to the doctor every 30 days. That is the majority of the confusion that we saw from employees. We had a lot of other aspects which led to our call volume and kind of which you've probably also heard a bit. So we had some imputed income inquiries. We had made adjustments to imputed income for life insurance. That are corrections to imputed income for life insurance that under workday show up on employees' paychecks. So we tried to explain that through an email to employees, but that caused more employees to call us or email us. So we got a high volume from that. On page 12, we also got a high volume of employees calling us about their Blue Shield Vision card. We were a little bit unaware that Anthem was going to send cards to everybody. We kind of thought that they were only going to send cards to Anthem members that no longer have medical as of January 1st, but they sent cards to everybody. And so we got a lot of cards, a lot of calls and contacts from people confused as to why they got their Anthem card. But it's just for vision. Anthem is still the carrier for a vision. It's been our carrier for vision. So that card only says vision on it, doesn't say anything else. And then on the bottom of page 12 is more to where you were talking about, Marlene. We did have a number of calls from individuals kind of on confusion on enrollment or confusion on how the services worked for the new plan that they're enrolled into. Part of that was delay in data. So part of that was people expecting to be able to seek services or to have a UHC or Blue Shield had their information on January 1st and the data wasn't loaded at that time in that particular individual situation. So they weren't, but it was not intentional or it was not because they didn't have that coverage. It was just delaying getting the data loaded for a small number of cases. There is also some confusion on the bottom of page 12 talks about the drug piece or the prescription drug piece. But there's confusion on a couple different factors on actually using services, where they can go, whether or not they could register, how they use those services. But for the prescription drug piece specifically, there was a little bit of confusion over how employees were experiencing when they go to seek services at a pharmacy. At the bottom of page 4, there are 4 items identified specifically that we saw as most common that employees might have experienced. Some of it could be the data delay, that they were going to their pharmacy to fill prescription, but we haven't, that wasn't loaded yet for them to be enrolled. Part of it was due to the actual action of reauthorization versus continuity of care. So maybe they needed that prescription itself needed to be reauthorized. There was an attempt to try to have a little bit of a continuation for people to be able to have a delay in needing to get that reauthorization. But prescription still falls under the same concept that we were talking about during open enrollment, which is this is a new insurance carrier that still has to approve the actions or the services that employees are seeking. So at some point, somebody filling a prescription is still going to have that prescription reauthorized through their insurance company. So if someone, so for example, I think a common thing that we were hearing a lot, if someone went to the pharmacy in January, tried to fill a prescription and it was a prescription longer than 30 days, they might have been told, nope, they can't fill it, or they might have been quoted a large price or something else. They would have to go back through their doctor and refill or reauthorize, excuse me, that service to be able to have the better experience. And it really boils down to a lot of making sure that employees understood that they need to tell their doctor's office, hey, I have new insurance as of January 1st. This is the first time in a while a lot of them would say that, but that would be important. The third category that we saw commonly for was just, is the pharmacy that they're usually at still in network for them? It may not be. So they have to check to make sure that their pharmacy is in network and that they are able to still use that pharmacy as an in-network service. I think we've heard a couple employees explain or say that their pharmacy was more than willing to fill a prescription for them, but they had to pay hundreds of dollars. And most likely that was just the non-insurance covered out of pocket true retail cost of that insurance because maybe they just are no longer in network, or back to the first example, maybe they saw their insurance had lapsed because they did not have the new enrollment data provided to them. And then the last category was drug formulary changes. So just because an insurance was covered under a certain tier under the prior insurance company does not mean it's going to be under the same tier under their new insurance provider. We tried to make the drug formulary available from open enrollment onwards. It is public. It is available for people to look at. I think it's a nuanced concept for people to understand. But it is important, but it is definitely a resource that we want to make sure employees are going to, just to make sure they understand where their current prescriptions and drugs are under the new formulary listing. So it's still an education issue or education thing that we're trying to make sure that we're getting employees fully aware of. It's going to be an ongoing battle. It's not going to be something that we are going to no longer hear from. I'm sure we're going to still hear from employees moving forward about all these items potentially, but mostly the prescriptions. Any questions so far? So, oh yes.
Yes, so all those situations that you brought up, I have heard from my members on each of those. I think the most concerning and the hardest for me to explain or assist with is, well, yeah, how do we know what the problem is, right? Is it the authorization? Is it that they're using a home delivery pharmacy that may not be covered? And then for me, the concerning part was the change in tiers, because I don't think we talked about that at all during this process of deciding whether or not to change. And it's not something I thought of. But yeah, I mean, I've had members complaining about going from, $40 a month to thousands and trying to work through it. Maybe it's an authorization issue. I don't know. So who do we direct them to help with this?
It really should be the place where they should start. It should be their doctor's office to make sure the doctor's office agrees that they have their insurance updated. And then also with the insurance company themselves, so Blue Shield or UHC. And I would strongly recommend they start with the member advocate instead of the general call number, but they can still call the number on the back of their card. If they wanted to go with the member advocate route, they on our website are it is a Calendly link, or it is a schedule an appointment to be able to talk with our member advocate. That is the way we're moving forward. So they can schedule an appointment. A lot of the appointments are available same day, but they are available a couple of days a week.
Okay. Okay.
I would, it is a difficult kind of piece, and in the way that we have had our policies for quite some time, we do not have a custom drug formulary. We have the standard drug formulary that's offered by the plans, and those are subject to change as well, right? So there is always potential that there might be just a misunderstanding, but there's always potential that something could alter. Unfortunately, the way that this all works is it's on the employee, on the individual, to make sure they're being charged correctly. And to do exactly that, right? If they see a cost or they're experiencing cost that they don't think is right, they should be asking questions. They should be challenging it. They should be going and trying to make sure it is right. But that starts with the insurance plan.
I've also found that things that are over the counter are not covered now, even though they were cheaper through insurance.
We can if you have some member examples, you can pass them to us and we can try to troubleshoot them as well. But I do think from what we're hearing, a lot of it is just the transition phase, and we should not see those members have that same experience moving forward.
Okay.
We're not expecting that to happen.
Okay, fingers crossed. Thank you.
And then, so that was what we heard, the bulk of the member experience through this transition of health plans. The next section with section D is talking about our staff's ability to be able to respond to those. The committee may remember we had agreed to putting in a new position authority, a health educator position. We have not hired that position authority. We still need to get class to create an exam and go through a process for hiring. So it's going to be a little while for us to do so. We used our consultants for that role during open enrollment. And our overall program of individuals was fully invested in everything open enrollment. So we were hoping we'd have better response times to employees or better ability to get to things. But we were just overwhelmed by the number of calls. The status that I showed you before that we had on the prior slides of calls, the end of December, early January, we were flooded. So the month numbers there show almost a consistent, but the last 2 weeks we were getting certain days where we got 400 calls a day. It was just a lot. So our ability to respond was not the best, but we did get to everybody. At this time, we're not looking or asking or even recommending to make a staffing change. We are going to be looking at shifting things around, reorganizing or restructuring our current staffing internally, and looking towards some tech support options and some IT options to be able to try to maximize efficiency and work with members a little bit better. Part of that is actually going to come from our improvements that TELUS had promised in our continuation of contract with them, which are slated to launch this year, and they're going to be speaking to it next month as well. So if there's no other questions so far, we'll jump into budget. So on page 14 is the extremely detailed, but super simple budget that the committee had adopted. On the revenue side, and you may, just to recap, the overall premiums and expenditures that happen from this are covering money that's transferred into the benefits trust fund from the general fund. It covers payroll deductions from employees. That's the overall premium. Part of that premium, though, the employer side, is reimbursed by proprietary department. So airport, harbor, they reimburse us for the employer's share. So the employer contributions that we had identified, the HRB adopted, is the civilian population transfer of general fund. That was part of the adopted budget for council. We had said that we were expecting an increase of roughly 6.6 million based on our renewal change after budget had gotten adopted. And you'll remember, maybe, there is always an overlap. So the mayor's budget that comes out in April, we don't know what our renewal is going to look like usually at that time. So that is, we don't find out what our actual renewal rates are going to be or our premiums are going to be until the same time the budget is adopted, usually around June. So there's always kind of two different paths happening at the same time on these figures. So the $400 million figure is what was adopted at the time before renewal was known. And based off of it, you can go to the next page on page 15. Based off of what we're seeing from December to January changes, the total cost change is reflected on that chart there. So the employee cost has gone down. There's a savings for employees of roughly, give or take, $200,000 a month. But there's an increase for employer costs of roughly 2 point something million a month as well. So the increase that we're seeing in the forecasting models that we use for budget show that we are currently in a deficit of about $5.6 million for the city's share of employer cost based off of this transition. So the recommendation that we have from a revision is on the next slide, which is page 16. We're recommending to just increase the overall budget by that 5.6 million, to not change any other budget figures. This is still an estimate. This is still a very simplified version of this. The committee can choose to table this item and to come back with a lot more detail and if you really wanted to get into the weeds on numbers. But this is the recommendation that we don't make any other adjustments to the budget figures, just the increase in transfer to be able to pay for the premiums. And that is the report.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the staff recommendation. Yes.
Apologies. Before we go into
Mhm.
the vote process for the recommendation,
Mhm.
I think we may need to update one item on the agenda first. On the agenda for Committee Report 26-01, the Benefit Trust Fund, there is a typo on there for a recommendation A, which is to adopt a funding adjustment in the amount of 5 million.
Mhm.
We just want to note that it should be 5.6 million to be in line with this report.
So to memorialize the amendment, I would need a motion from the committee. The agenda doesn't. Okay, so we would need a motion for amending motion to adopt 5.6 million in a second, and then we could then vote.
Move to adopt the staff recommendations as amended.
A second.
So just to repeat, this motion is to approve the amendment to the JLMBC agenda. Okay. We will go ahead with taking the roll call for vote, starting with management and then the employee organization. Malika, your vote.
Aye.
Tony, your vote.
Aye.
Matthew, your vote. Paul, your vote.
Aye.
Patrice, your vote.
Aye.
Janita, your vote.
Yes.
Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Lisa, your vote.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue to item number 4, Committee Report 2602, which is 2026 Educational Conferences. Sorry.
Wait, don't we still have to move the
Oh,
action?
We still need
do we, I'm sorry, we need to vote? The first one was to adjust
to change
the recommendation. I'm sorry. Okay, so we will, I'll entertain a motion. So do we need a motion? A motion to adopt, the staff recommendation as amended.
Second.
you.
Oh, was that your? Are you making the motion?
Can't, she's a chair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't, but
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. This recommendation is to this motion is to adopt the recommendation for Committee Report 26-01, recommendation A, B, and C. We will take roll call for voting again. Malika, your vote.
aye.
Tony, your vote.
Aye.
Matthew, your vote. Oh, Matthew is not present at this time. Paul, your vote.
Aye.
Janita, your vote.
Yes.
Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Lisa, your vote.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes. Oh,
You-
I
yeah.
apologize. Patrice, your vote. Thank you.
Motion still passes.
The motion, yes, the vote is unanimous. The motion still passes.
Okay, so we'll move on to item number 4, Committee Report 2602, which is the 2026 Educational Conferences. Thank you.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, members of the committee. Andrew Torres, Employee Benefits Division.
Daniel Powell, Employee Benefits.
So this committee report is to recommend that the JLMBC approve the necessary funding from the Employee Benefits Trust Fund for any interested JLMBC members and staff of the Employee Benefits Division to attend in person the following conference events. They're listed as item A, the Thrive Personify Health Conference taking place March 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. Item B, the Art and Science of Health Promotion Conference, also taking place March 2026 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Item C, the State and Local Government Benefits Association Conference taking place in May 2026 in Providence, Rhode Island. Item D, the Wellness Alliance Annual Wellness Summit Conference, July 2026, taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. And item E, the International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans Annual Conference in October 2026, taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana. The discussion describes this request is not intended to increase the overall amount of travel that members of the JLMBC or staff are considering, but rather to consider alternatives. And I think it might be helpful to, end the preamble here and allow for questions. The one note that was included here in this report is that the JLMBC is the authority for expenditure under the Benefits Trust Fund. And so this committee has the discretion to approve the recommendation for all the items. Some of the items, they can set limits for budget or number of attendees from the committee or from staff. So we really wanted to provide you with a menu of options here, and I can answer any further questions.
Thank you for looking up these alternatives.
Yes. Yeah, and maybe I'll go a little bit more into that background. So historically, the JLMBC has had members of the committee and staff members attend the International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans, IFEPB conferences. And, I think members of the committee may have found them helpful because they allow them to interact with other stakeholder groups similar to yourself. For staff, the content maybe is not at the level that we have found helpful in the day-to-day management or administration of our programs. In 2025, the early part of 2025, staff from Employee Benefits attended the State and Local Government Benefits Association Conference, or the SALGBA Conference, as it's known, in St. Louis. And that was helpful because there was a lot more interaction with other public sector, high-level managers, mid-level managers, and there was a focus really on how these benefit groups approach public sector employees. So we have experience having attended the conference listed as item E and item C. We also, the wellness group, the Live Well program, had staff attend the Wellness Alliance Annual Wellness Summit Conference. It's formerly known as WellCOA, but that's item D, and that's also helpful from a wellness perspective in terms of promoting education for employees around health and well-being. We believe that each of the other options also provides the opportunities to build education in these areas for staff and for members of the committee. But ultimately, the request is with you all to approve, deny, ask questions.
Any questions from the committee?
Do we just reach out if we have interest in any of these?
Yes. So on page, excuse me, on the,
I'm assuming it's approved.
yes, on page 9 of this report, we list dates that we request that members of the committee notify EBD staff of their interest. So the first one is rather soon for the Thrive Summit Personify Health Conference. That's deadline of Tuesday, February 17th. And the rest of the dates follow there.
Thank you.
Just to get context, since this is my first year on the committee of this, has this body historically approved funding to go to all of the conferences to have the funding available? And then the committee members sort of pick and choose which ones, and then the funds are expended based on the fact that we've approved funding for all. How does that work?
Yes, so I went back and I looked at agendas as far back as 2022, and the recommendation from staff to this committee has always been to approve attendance for any interested members of the JLMBC or staff. And the approval has always been unanimous, with the exception of last year, given the travel associated to Honolulu, Hawaii for the IFEPB conference. But I think to answer your question more specifically, yes, the recommendation has always been to approve any member to attend, and then members of this committee decide amongst themselves who's interested and report back, and we coordinate travel for you all.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? All right, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we take the staff recommendation of moving all the conferences.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We will begin taking the roll call vote for committee report number 26-02. Malika, your vote.
Aye.
Tony, your vote. Please let the record show that Matthew Crawford is not present. Paul, your vote.
Aye.
Patrice, your vote.
Aye.
Janita, your vote.
Yes.
Marlene, your vote. And Lisa, your vote.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question? That just, I just went back to look at the budget and which line would,
It would come out of the personnel staffing one. I think that's the level of line.
thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. We can move on to informational items. And I'll call item number 6, as we've already heard. Item number 5, benefit provider presentation from Kaiser.
Hello again.
Me, you, and Paul.
So now we've got Kaiser.
Yeah.
And we've got Michelle Dubois and Mark Chiope and Dr. Jonathan Doris. And you all know that Kaiser has been a partner for years and years. They, through the RFP, maintained the business last year, and they're going to go through utilization through November of last year and give us a kind of a sense of what's driving the cost on the medical and RX side for Kaiser. Take it on over.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Dubois, and I'm the Senior Account Executive who oversees the City of Los Angeles account. And I'd like to reintroduce Mark Chopik, who is our Underwriting Manager for Strategic Accounts, and Dr. Jonathan Doris, who is our Physician Ambassador, as well as an electrophysiologist. Mark is going to walk through our utilization summary today, and Dr. Doris will be available to address all clinical questions, as well as provide additional insight into chronic conditions affecting the City of Los Angeles population. So before we go into the agenda, I'd like to provide an overview. So Kaiser Permanente holds a unique position in today's healthcare landscape. You know, what differentiates Kaiser Permanente is our integrated model where care and coverage operate together as one coordinated experience. So this model leads with care, empowering doctors to focus on what's best for patients without unnecessary barriers. So members can really benefit from the appropriate care at the right time. You're going to hear today how this approach consistently produces stronger outcomes, such as higher preventative screening rates, better chronic condition management, and performance that exceeds national averages in key health measures. So these results translate directly into healthier employees, fewer complications, as well as better long-term value for employers. At the core, our message is really simple. When care and coverage work as one, everything works better. So our agenda today will provide a utilization summary as well as insight on chronic conditions. I'll now turn it over to Mark, who will walk us through the utilization overview, and please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. Go to page 4. So one more action.
All right, perfect. So good morning, JLMBC members. My name is Mark Chopik. I'll give you that quick little walkthrough of the utilization compared to the most recent renewal. So if we go to the next slide, we'll kind of give us the high level overview of everything that's happened since the rating of the 2026 renewal. So on taking your eyes over to the far left side in green, we have the utilization for the city of Los Angeles going from December of 2024 through November of 2025. That means that we have 2 more months of utilization before we get to the rating of the 2027 renewal. Within this time frame compared to the 2026 renewal, what we've seen is an overall increase of claims on a per member per month basis increase of about 2.4%. Looking at comparison to the health plan of Kaiser Permanente in Southern California, which is running at 4.3%, the city is running a little bit lower, close to that 1.9%. And this is kind of important to realize kind of expectations as we go into the 2027 renewal. Obviously, there are a number of different rating factors that we have to implement as we get to our rating for the 2027 renewal, just as we have for all of our others. But looking at on just a claims to claims basis, with the city running slightly lower than the health plan for Southern California, we're hopeful that the renewal for 2027 would be kind of in line with what we'd see as our Kaiser Permanente average increase, or if possible, pending the utilization that comes through the next couple of months and kind of how those factors sit out, maybe even slightly below. But on what's kind of driving the biggest separation between the city and the Kaiser Permanente health plan average is that inpatient claims in that top left chart. So when we look at this on a year-over-year basis, the 3 oldest years that we're seeing here, generally we've seen utilization and inpatient stay pretty close to the health plan on a year-over-year basis. The past few years, we have seen some fluctuations kind of up, down, and this is somewhat expected because inpatient is that category where we're going to see the largest impact of high-cost claimants. So those $1 million, $2 million, $3 million plus claimants are going to have an impact there, whether they're coming on or falling off. So at this moment in time, we are at kind of an unexpected point where we are seeing the city's utilization pretty far below the health plan's average, which is not something that we've seen in the past years. So trying to set expectations and kind of thinking of what might be coming down the road in terms of the next couple months, next couple years, we might see that come back up to something that's a little bit more on average, on par with the health plan, if not a little bit higher. So just keeping that in mind as we move forward through the next month and next years. Looking at outpatient pharmacy and then the other category, all of them run pretty in line with the health plan on a year-over-year basis. And what helps with that is the overall size of the population for the city of Los Angeles. Larger numbers, generally any kind of significant increases or decreases are spread across the pool. So it helps limit the significant changes in those categories. Going to the next slide. What we're looking at are the top 5 utilization categories within inpatient, outpatient, and pharmacy. So looking at inpatient, just to kind of get your mindset for what we're looking at. Everything that's in the gray bar is utilization from 2 renewals back, or the what was used in the rating of the 2025 renewal. Light blue is what was used in the rating of the 2026 renewal, and dark blue is that most recent utilization period. So a couple things to call out. Looking at the second largest category within inpatient, certain infectious and parasitic diseases, we've seen a pretty significant drop within this category since last year, but you can also see that the prior year it was higher than what we've seen in the past. This was in relation to one of the large claimants that came through during the rating of the 2026 renewal. That claimant has fallen off, and that's why we're seeing a bit of a drop there. Pregnancy, childbirth, and puerperium. What we've been seeing there, and I'll get a little bit more information for you on the next slide. We have seen a pretty significant drop in the admissions per thousand for maternity related claims. So we're seeing less pregnancies come through and less deliveries in the past months. Moving over to outpatient, couple of things to call out here. Mental health, mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopmental disorders. That's a category that we've seen kind of increase pretty steadily at a pretty heightened rate over the years as individuals have been getting better access to mental health care. Kind of the social barriers to receiving mental health care have been coming down, and people are essentially getting into the offices and being able to have those visits more often. So costs associated with those is increasing. Neoplasm is another one of those categories that we continue to see increase on a year-over-year basis. One of the largest contributing factors to this is going to be relation to the cost of cancer medications that are being done, therapies that are done in the outpatient setting. We see cost of those medications increase at a pretty significant rate on a year-over-year basis, and we see that come through in this category as well. And then lastly, just to call, because it's a little bit of a different naming, the factors influencing health status and contact with health services. Best way to look at that one is kind of your standard preventative visits, your ongoing visits with your doctor. That's the category that we always want to see as the main kind of the drive for the outpatient. And that's because that's showing that individuals are coming in for their preventative screenings. As soon as we see the drops in those numbers, it raises a little bit of a red flag of we're missing individuals. People aren't coming in for those visits. And then lastly, over in pharmacy, the main one that I'll call out here is that endocrine category. That's where we've had continued discussions around GLP-1 utilization. And that endocrine category that you can see from 2 years back to the last year, pretty significant jump. We are still seeing an increase in utilization attached to those medications, but we have additional information later on the slides as well. Going over to inpatient. So this breaks down kind of what we've seen in the last or in the most recent utilization for inpatient overall. Breaks it down to those more subcategories: medical, surgical, maternity, and so on. Couple things to call out. So just a reminder that overall utilization for inpatient is down 8.6%, which is quite a bit below that 0.6% increase that we've seen within the health plan. One of the main drive with this category coming down is the decrease in overall admissions. And you can see that in that middle piece on the left side. So inpatient admits per thousand is down almost 11.5%. We are seeing a reduction in the health plan side, but not nearly to that same level that we're seeing within the city's utilization. And one of those kind of drivers with that decrease is that maternity section. So maternity, since the most recent renewal, we've seen an overall cost decrease of about 15%. And our admissions rates is now at the lowest that we've seen over the last 5 years. So it's another one of those categories of kind of relaying back to what we looked at the first slide. This is something that we would kind of expect to be lower than normal, and we should expect to see come back up in coming months and coming years. Okay. And then moving off to outpatient. So outpatient has seen an increase of 6.6%, pretty much in line with what we're seeing within the health plan at 6%. Little variances here or there make sense. One of the biggest ones to call out here is mental health. You can see that the increase on the per member per month cost is up 21.5%. What we've seen here is an increase of visits per thousand at almost 17.5% compared to the prior year. The largest portion of that increase that we're seeing from last year to this year is related to anxiety, fear, and trauma-related visits. In the prior years, we've seen some other categories move up, but that's what we're seeing at this moment right now.
Has the treatment sort of like process that Kaiser utilizes for mental health evolved or changed in any way that you think may have driven the increase of participants in the mental health area? Or is it still kind of the same model?
Well, I know, and I'll leave it to you to jump in as well. I know over the years we've had pretty aggressive hiring campaigns for our mental health physicians.
Mhm.
So we have better access in that aspect. In addition, the use of, and I am blanking on the company that right now that we utilize. Uh, Individuals are able to get a certain number of visits through a telehealth or a
Mm.
virtual visit with
Headspace.
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 They're able to use like Headspace for those kind of initial encounters within the mental health world, and then once kind of get through those, transition to the Kaiser facility or the Kaiser doctors. So being able to get those initial encounters in, I think is probably one of another
Okay.
contributing factor in there.
We do have a population that's getting used to more telehealth as well as digital self-care apps. So Headspace is a program that provides 24/7 digital access. So if someone needs assistance in the middle of the night on a Saturday, they can text a mental health specialist. So those are some of the platforms that are being really more utilized through self-care.
Is it text only or,
For Headspace, it's text only.
and it's a live person answering the text?
Correct. It's a live person. It's not AI. That is a question that we do get. Is it AI or is it a real person? It's a real person. Now, with Headspace, it is not a substitution for clinical care.
Right.
It is only for 90 days for what we call just urgent needs. Anything that it's crisis driven, and there's also an intake in that process that's crisis driven or that needs clinical assistance, that individual is then redirected to go see a clinical mental health specialist. So this is not a replacement for ongoing care or for crisis intervention. It is just an additional platform for access of care. So it's an additional, but it's not a substitution.
I would also call out, thank you. Sorry, John Doris, physician at Kaiser since 2000. So I would also call out at Kaiser Permanente, we have been very active and intentional in destigmatizing mental health. We have done wonderful campaigns with high profile people, Steph Curry, many high profile people, to destigmatize the idea of getting mental health care. And I think that that's been very effective. And so I'm actually sort of happy to see, when I see this kind of utilization, because we are actively seeking people who need care. If you go to your primary care doctor, you will be screened for depression and anxiety. Any adult or adolescent who is in a primary care office gets screened periodically. And so it's a very active program, because I think we see the value of that.
I think just the last piece, I think the added benefit to seeing kind of increased utilization in mental health in the outpatient setting is, on a cost basis, we see less of those individuals go to an inpatient setting for mental health care. So within that setting, it could be pretty difficult for the family and the individual to go through that. There's long stays attached to that, and can be also pretty significant costs associated to there as well. So being able to interact and engage with individuals at the outpatient setting is much preferred over moving forward.
At the bottom where it says the consequences of external causes, what's that mean?
Yeah, so that's just the long way of saying like injuries, essentially. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to pull in the coding that comes in through our claim system. So looking at ER visits, those are up about 13% in terms of claims, but the visits have stayed fairly flat. So that means the best way to look at that is we have the same number of individuals that are coming through on an annual basis, but the cost associated with that has increased pretty significantly. There's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, on a year-over-year basis, we do see increases in cost of care just because of medical inflation, materials, things like that. In addition, taking a look at kind of the reason that I saw individuals for like the largest increases in the ER visits, syncope, sprains, and then that injuries of kind of external causes. That is kind of the overarching diagnosis of kind of what comes through in the claim system. What's underneath that tells a little bit more of a story. It's just we can't get really on the individual basis, but to put it into an example. So if an individual has a fainting episode, but just weeks or maybe months prior, they had some kind of a head injury, the cost of care is going to be very different for an individual who had that kind of a situation than someone who just faints randomly and has to go to the ER. So situations like that can drive up costs within the ER without driving up the number of visits. I just kind of want to call attention to that.
Can I ask, so which of these charts would show the impact of when different employee strikes were kind of reducing access to care?
On that, I wouldn't necessarily say that this would show that. This is just the overall utilization over the time. I wouldn't be able to give you what occurred like in October, or November, or September during those times.
So with maybe the City of Los Angeles inpatient green chart with the red numbers, would that be a reflection of?
I think if I were to look at the utilization, because inpatient is less frequent, I would probably lean more towards the outpatient setting to look at just the visits per thousand as what impacts might have happened on a year-over-year basis in relation to like strikes and things like that. So looking at that number specifically, we do see that from the most recent renewal, we're up about 4.4% in terms of the number of visits per thousand. That could get more in terms of like just plain visits, but we do still see an increase in visits within there. If we were to see an impact of, I guess, striking, I think it would be within the outpatient setting.
I mean, because my members did report that their appointments were being canceled or rescheduled because of access issues to the strikes. So I just wondered which of these overall.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's hard to nail it down because obviously every category kind of works in with itself, but I would probably refer to that outpatient visits.
Thanks.
Moving over to pharmacy, what we've seen as an overall increase of 6.7% compared to the 5.7 for the health plan. Couple quick notes here because I do have an additional slide on pharmacy that goes a little bit deeper for you all. 91% of all prescriptions that have been filled in the past 12 months have been generic. And I think one of the important things to call out with that is the cost of generics are significantly lower than those brand specialty drugs. So looking at the very top, generic drugs make up $7.45 on a per member per month basis, but they make up 91% of all the prescriptions being filled. So the higher rate that we can continue to see people on those generics and the high rate that our physicians continue to prescribe generics helps both cost for the city as well as cost for the members. On a prescription number basis, we've seen a 2.9% increase in prescriptions filled since the most recent renewal. On average, we've seen this with the city be on about a 5% basis. So we are a little bit lower in terms of that increased trend, but also accounting for the last 2 years, we've also seen increases in things like Ozempic utilization or GLP-1 utilization. So we did see a bit of a spike within there. So I think 2.9% to that 3.5% is kind of expected. Taking a little bit further look at pharmacy on the next slide. What we've done is we've listed out the top 10 drugs by net claims at the top. So that's looking at each individual drug. It lets you know whether they're labeled as brand or specialty, the total net claims associated to it, and then also the claims per script, as well as on a total claims basis, how much, or on a total pharmacy claims basis, how much of the overall utilization that drug makes up. Down below, it breaks down GLP-1 utilization into a little bit more of a granular level for everyone. So you can take a look at each specific medication that is prescribed to the city of Los Angeles. This could look different for other groups just because of individuals needing different medications and things like that. There's no difference in the formularies or anything like that. But we can see that on a comparison to the 2026 renewal, overall GLP-1 utilization is up just over $1 million at $2.28 on a per member per month basis. A couple things to call out. The biggest one obviously being Ozempic. We do continue to see increase in utilization there. But a couple notes here is, while it's not at the same rate that we saw in the prior year, we are continuing to see a decrease in that price per script. So that's coming from a couple of things, obviously, with manufacturers having access to more facilities to produce this medication, cost is going to come down. And also, due to the large buying power that Kaiser Permanente has within the pharmaceutical market, we continue to attract better pricing options there. And then the last slide that I had before I pass it off is looking at high cost claimants over $950,000. So $950,000 is what we use as that kind of pulling point or the cutoff limit within the rating of your 2026 renewal. This might change as we go into the 2027 renewal, but just to kind of keep things on a level basis, we've compared them at the same. So we are up to 4 individuals that are over that 950,000 point limit. Person number 1 and person number 2 are person number 1 and person number 2 from the prior year, so they are continued claims. Person number 3 and person number 4 are new to the high cost claimant list as of the most recent 12 months. And then person number 3 from the prior year is that individual that I called out, the second slide that's showed the infectious diseases decrease within that one category. That was connected to that individual falling off utilization as a whole. One comment I do want to make, just because the primary diagnoses are shown here, a little clarification in terms of how we come to the naming of the primary diagnosis, because I think person number 2 creates a little bit of a question in terms of how we do that. So on a quick basis, what our system does for this report is it looks at the single largest dollar amount for an in-person visit. And it applies whatever the diagnosis for that visit is to the primary diagnosis on this report. Now, it creates a little bit of a difficulty for person number 2, since that is person number 2 from the prior year. This is continuing hemophilia medication. So the vast majority of their utilization is medication-wise, but we don't list out the drug that they have as their diagnosis, because it's not diagnosed at that point. So I just wanted to create that little bit of clarification on that. Pass it off.
Great. Thank you.
And just very briefly, we'll go to the next slide. We'll just talk about chronic conditions. As you know, may or may not know, chronic conditions really drive medical utilization. And so I really love the format of this slide that we use so often. And it just goes through, just to orient you, some of the diagnoses like diabetes and heart failure and high blood pressure and obesity. And it just goes year over year from top to bottom. So the dark orange is the most recent. So I'll just point out a couple things. So the conditions listed here, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, are essentially along with cholesterol, are essentially the metabolic syndrome driven by obesity. And we have an obesity problem in this country. We see that in not too many years, the estimate is that over 50% of the adult population of this country will be obese, and as defined by BMI greater than 30. And so that drives this metabolic syndrome. That drives the body to develop glucose intolerance and develop diabetes. It drives high blood pressure. It drives cholesterol management abnormalities in the body. And those are the things that lead to chronic disease, chronic high blood pressure, early coronary artery disease, early stroke, early heart attacks. And so I will point out one thing on this, that year over year, that these past 3 years, we have seen obesity be pretty stable, which is unusual if you go back historically, that year over year, it's usually been increasing. And so I'm just wondering, and this is just thinking in my head, I'm wondering if we're starting to see the effects, the positive effects of GLP-1 antagonists, GLP-1 inhibitor use, that now enough people are getting access to that it's having an effect on big populations like this. large number populations like this account. And so that's just sort of one of the big things I wanted to talk about, because we see obesity stable and diabetes is going down and coronary artery disease is stable. Blood pressure is up a little bit, but that's also age related, possibly. And then the other thing I want to talk about on this slide is really important, and that is our system of chronic condition care. And we see the little blue numbers at the bottom of each diagnosis. If you just get your microscope out, magnifying glass out, those little blue numbers. That is to say, if someone at Kaiser Permanente gets a diagnosis of diabetes, they are automatically enrolled in a chronic care management program. So over 2,700 of the members of this City of LA, Kaiser members, are automatically enrolled in care management for diabetes. That means it's not just being treated by their doctor. It's being treated by multidisciplinary group of people, pharmacists, care coordinators, who it's more eyes on the problem and then equaling more eyes, better treatment. And that's true of each of these diagnoses that you see these blue numbers. This is a opt-out system, which means a person has to actively opt out of getting this extra care. They are automatically enrolled in getting this extra care, and they would have to be actively say, I don't want all this extra care. I don't want all this help. I don't want all this good stuff. And so it's really a phenomenal program, and it's very near and dear to my heart as a cardiologist that I have my patients get all of this extra care to improve medication compliance, activity compliance, weight loss compliance, all of that, to help in cardiac care. But I just wanted to point out those two main items on here. Does anyone have any questions about this slide? It's a really informative slide. It is. Okay, well, thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, we'd like to just thank you for having us here today. Any additional questions for the Kaiser Permanente team?
No questions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll call informational item, item number 7 on the agenda. Committee Report 2603, Plan Document.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Montagna. I used to work with the Personnel Department, retired in 2022, and have come back as a returning retiree to help out with certain projects. So I'm very happy to present to you this restatement of the plan document for the LAWell program. Under federal law, cafeteria plans are required to maintain a plan document which describes what the benefits are, what the eligibility rules are, rules for making changes, and all other aspects of administration. So in the past, the plan document materials have been sort of located in a range of different materials. So enrollment, the information that is published every year for enrollment, the website content, and other venues. Our objective in this process was really to pull all of that relevant information together and put that together in a more formal way and to create what you have before you now, which is this restated plan document. Our process for creating this first involved looking at other plan documents from other agencies. We looked at range, anything from materials that were really minimalist to ones that were very detailed. And our choice was basically to lean more towards the more detailed side, and that just reflects the considerable complexity that we have in the LAWell program. From there, we went through the drafting phase, which includes not just writing the content, but we also did an ongoing number of meetings internally with the staff to basically look at the kind of line by line of everything that we were drafting in the context of members' actual experience and sort of what the staff were encountering where they would be interacting with membership. And then the last stage of the review was to have this reviewed by our consultants at Keenan and by the city attorney. So we wanted to take this meeting to introduce this document only. We realize with all of the content that you're going to want some time to be able to look at it more in detail. So we will bring this back next month. The recommendation will be to have the JLMBC in partnership with the Personnel Department recommend adoption of the plan document to the City Council. At the same time, we'd like to request that Council approve recognizing the existence of the plan document within the administrative code, and then providing for the ongoing retirement and administration of that document in the same kind of a structure that currently exists with the relationship between the JLMBC and the Personnel Department. So that would basically put it under the ongoing maintenance of the document wouldn't require going back to council every time. The document consists of 9 articles and 1 exhibit. The good news for you is I'm not going to go through all of those today. I did just want to note that the 3 articles where probably most of the administrative traffic takes place are probably Articles 2, 3, and 8. And that's because they involve sort of creating the definitions of the terms that are used and also being able to define eligibility, enrollment, what qualifies for status changes, and then the actual administration of the program that we have for needs that for situations that are very common, like employees on leave, rehires and reinstatements, and then the administration of the self-pay continuation coverage. So with that as an introduction, we'll be happy to take any questions or comments you have at this meeting. But as mentioned, we will be coming back next month with this item.
Any questions from committee members? All right, well, we look forward to hearing in more detail from you next month. Thank you very much, Steve. All right. Go ahead.
Hi, Malika. Sorry, before you continue, I just have 2 items to bring up to the committee. First up is just as a matter of record, please let it be known that Shauna Janeway is sitting in for Janita. And before we go into the request for future agenda items, Marlene, I know that you had asked for some follow-up questions earlier during the MetLife presentation. If you could just also for the record ask for those items again during the request for future items.
Really? How long ago was that? Yes, I was curious about, I don't remember.
I
The
think that
numbers of, I have to go back and look at the report if you really. Oh, yes, I wanted to know how many people transitioned at the end of their city careers.
the portability conversion
Yes.
data.
How many actually opted in the transition, yeah. But I also have a pending item from many months ago that's now in effect that I really would like a report on or some information on. And that was the change in the law for requiring some sort of reproductive benefits for women in their benefit plan. I want to say it's SB 729. And that took effect January 1st. We haven't heard anything about it.
Are you talking about the state bill for
729?
IVF?
Yes.
Does this mean we've already moved to agenda item 8, the request for future items?
Apologies, we jumped ahead there.
Yes. Okay. So yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Any other future items? All right, our next regular meeting dates are March 5th, 2026 and April 2nd, 2026. Anything further? All right, we will close this meeting, or the meeting is adjourned at 10:55 a.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make it next to you, Joe. It's like, be like, what am I doing, Sean? Like, I'm. First one, welcome.
It worked? Did you get the meme?
Well, yeah, kind of, I usually open up.
Better?
You were like, how?
I think I may have.
Am I
to
supposed to-